Hey everyone, so here we go. So today I'm going to show you an easy way to create a graph based on all of the data that you have. So first things first, I want you guys all to go ahead and go to Desmos.com, and once you're there, your screen should look something like this. I'm going to enlarge this so it's a little bit bigger. But once we get here, let's go ahead and let's input that data. Now in our case, we're not going to be just putting in a normal equation. We don't know what that equation is. We will find that here towards the end. That's our line of best fit. But for now, my data really is just looks like X and Y values, right? So it's kind of like a scatter plot. So we're going to create that here. If I click on this little drop-down triangle, I'm going to go down here to table because that's the form that my data is in. I have X numbers, X values. I have Y values. In this case, guys, I'm going to graph the Chicago Cubs, and we're going to pick their wins compared to their payroll. So we should have 20 values here all in total, and I'm just going to go ahead and start typing those in. So my first one says, hey, they've got 73 wins, and it took them a little bit, took them 89.01 million. I took my payroll, and instead of typing out 89 million, because that's a ridiculously long number, and if we graph this, I'd like to have, I don't know, maybe an easier way to do that so that my numbers aren't as big. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to start plugging in all of my numbers here for their wins. And this is all data that you have gathered, and then you're just going to type this in. So it's a little bit easier of an input for us. So there we go. So there's my 10 years of wins for them. As you can see, they top out. They max out at 97 wins. Their lowest is 61. So we will talk about that here in a little bit. But let's go ahead. Let's put their payroll in here. So they spent $104.3 million that year. Then they spent $88.2 million, $125.5 million. And if you've got questions on how to change your data so I guess it looks a little bit cleaner. Again, we could put in these crazy large numbers, but it's really not necessary for what we're going to do. We can shorten them up, and they're still going to show us the same amount. We just call that 80. Let's do this. So this is $99.7 million. That seems like just an absolute bargain. 94.4 and 87.2 million. So there we go. So here's all my data. Now, while I've been putting this in, normally we would see some stuff happening over here, but nothing's going on. And that's just because we can't see it. We're looking at the 4 quadrants here, but my my window isn't really set very well. Like if we hit this zoom out button, we should see some data here eventually, maybe some plots. Here we go. All right. I don't really need to see, for this example, I don't really care about quadrants 2 and 3 and 4. All of our data lies in quadrant 1, and that makes sense. So let's go ahead and let's just kind of, we want to zoom in on mostly quadrant 1. I'll set our settings up, or our window settings, so that we can see a little bit of everything else. So if we go up to this little wrench up here, graph settings, and click on that, now we can fancy this up a little bit. So my x-axis, this was our number of wins, okay, for each year. And here's the view right now. It's meaning, so it's going from negative 320 all the way over here to positive 320. Well, we don't need to see that much. Maybe let's just take it from negative 50, if I can type. And what's the maximum number of games that they could win in a year? Well, 162 is the number of baseball games we play in a year. So let's go a little bit past that. Maybe let's just say 180, just so our graph looks nice and fancy. Our y-axis is showing us what? It is showing us in payroll, and that is in millions of dollars. Again, we know we can't look at negative money, but you'll see why we do this in a little bit, because it's just going to make our graph look nice. So if we went from, say, I don't know, negative 20, okay, all the way to and here's where you got to be careful. All right, now the Cubs, if we look over here, the highest they ever spent was $146 million. That got them a whopping 75 wins. Let's go a little bit bigger than that. We can just pick some nice numbers here like 200. That looks fine. So once you've got this in here, if you just click anywhere back here on your graph, this will disappear like so. And now we've got this. So I've got all these 10 data points, and this is a scatter plot, but I need to come up with our line of best fit. Okay, and this is why Desmos is super cool, because it does that for us very quickly. So if I come down here into box 2 and I just click in there, and now you can see my cursor, I'm going to type in just the standard slope-intercept form of an equation, y equals mx plus b. And it's telling me that, hey, you don't have enough information in here, but if you hit this all button, I can help you figure out what that should be. And here's these sliders that we have. So I can play around and I can move this line wherever I see fit, and kind of figure out what my equation should be. All right, and it's going to move these about every 10th of a number. So I don't think that looks good. That's not too bad. All right, maybe this needs to be a little bit higher. You can max that out there at 10. All right. Okay, and obviously you might need your help of your teacher. You know, this is clearly an outlying point here. We spent a lot of money for those wins. And this is where you can start to analyze your data and say, okay, was our team overperforming, you know, here? Were they underperforming up here? What all does this mean? I'd say this is a pretty good line of best fit here. Again, we want to come up with a line, all right, that's about midway, right, kind of from a lot of these data points, and we're lucky that it goes through here. All right, if you want to, what do we do with this data though? All right, so here's where our sliders ended up at. It gave me an m value of 1.3 and a b value of 10. So if I were going to write that equation, simply put, all I have to do to write that function is just say, hey, my equation is equal to 1.3x plus 10. All right, my y-intercept is here at 10. My slope is 1.3. Okay, and so we need to figure out, what do those things mean? What do they represent for my equation? But that's my equation, and now we can interpolate. So if I wanted, hey, I want my Cubs to win 100 games a year. Well, if we look at number of wins, 100, and we go up here to our graph, well, that would be right here. Well, how much money should they spend for those 100 wins? Well, it looks like $140 million is what they need to. And that's why this is helpful. This is why we're going to create these lines of best fit, because we can interpolate how they're doing on what they've spent. So down here, hey, it looks like we won almost, I think this was 97 games, and we only spent, you know, this much money here. So was that maybe a good year for us? Yes, because look, if I spend this much money, or I win this many games, it looks like we only should be winning about, you know, 82 games if we spend that amount of money. So this was a really good year. This year right here, hey, our graph would say that if you spend, you know, $146 million, well, you really underperformed, because you should have won this many games, right? Which looks to be about over here at about maybe, I don't know, 106 or so. So clearly you only won, you know, 75 games. You should have won 106. So you were about 30 games off. So anyway, this is super helpful, and hopefully this helped you create your graphs. So if you have any questions, just let us know.